All of tonight's rescues are true stories. We've sometimes used actors and stuntmen, but everything you see and hear is based on the accounts of the people involved. They've helped us to reconstruct events as they happened. Tonight on 999, seconds to live and one chance to save them. Overboard and helpless in the path of a runaway boat. And video reporter Fiona Foster with the Navy's Mine Squad. This is an ordinary street in the London suburb of Putney. It's a quiet residential area, the last sort of place where people would expect anything dramatic to happen. But on a bitterly cold January day, it was devastated by an explosion that killed several of the people who lived here and changed the lives of others completely. The whole central section of this block of flats was instantly demolished. They managed to put the buildings back together again quickly enough. It wasn't quite so simple for some of the people inside who survived. Tonight we show what happened to an extraordinary woman who was caught up in the events of that day and the strength, the courage and the skill of those who tried to help her. Qualities they found in themselves just when they needed them most. In recreating what happened, we've used BBC News pictures and fire brigade video shot on the day and talked to the people involved. But the drama of that day happened away from the cameras, under a teetering mass of rubble. There we've used an actor and an actress to reconstruct what happened.
7 o'clock on Thursday, the 10th of January. Today's newsreader is Brian Martin.
For Eva and Karen Krejci, who were born in Czechoslovakia, a normal working day, starting with breakfast together in the flat that they share. The caretaker, Dutchy Gellison, comes on duty at 6 a.m, but he usually waits until just after 7 before taking the morning mail to the people living in the flats.
The smell of gas is very strong this morning.
Terrible, yeah. I should be up the stairs and open the windows and doors up.
Yes, we've opened ours. I was going to phone the gas board later. Would you phone them as well?
I go in the office now.
Oh, thank you, Dutchy. I'll
Bye-bye.
see you later. Bye.
Dutchy never made the call. Ava didn't get to work. It's now 7:14 and her world is about to be blown apart.
News is coming in that 6 flats have collapsed in southwest London after an explosion and 16 people are feared trapped.
They've gone in the middle, and that is the bedroom area. So obviously the time of the morning, sometime after 7 o'clock, you can guess who's in the bedroom.
Scotland Yard says it's believed an explosion was caused by gas. And we heard a few minutes ago that several people are said to have been killed.
Well, I couldn't have expected anybody to survive. It was such total devastation. Nothing could prepare you really for the sight of the building itself. The whole centre section of the block of flats had collapsed into a huge pile.
The desperate search for survivors goes on all morning. They bring in a thermal imaging camera to try to detect body heat under the rubble. 2 hours after the explosion, 8 people are still unaccounted for, including Eva and her sister.
Essentially, it got to a stage that nobody felt that there were any more survivors. However, we know from experiences from the last war and from other major disasters that one never really gives up hope. It was almost close to the time that we were thinking of returning back to the hospital when suddenly a hush fell over the whole area.
We believe we've heard sounds of knocking from under the debris on the far side. We've got a small crew now working inside, below that slab, using one of our thermal imaging cameras to try and detect the body under the piles of rubble.
I think that's a bath, that.
What, a bath on top of a bath?
Well, it's come down 2 floors,
yeah, it is, yeah.
She was, in fact, in the bathroom, and the roof section had collapsed onto the bath, which had protected her. And this small void was where the main part of her body was, but her leg was badly crushed. So we had to find a different access point. And in doing so, we started a tunnel, or to tunnel towards the casualty, and the sound of the tapping. All the time, there was a possibility in disturbing one side that this would cause a further collapse. So it was a case of working slowly and very carefully in concert with all the crews that were there. And by that time, we'd established a conversation with the casualty.
Eve, what's your second name? Sorry? All right, Eve, we'll be with you in a minute. Don't worry, love, we're coming. Well, we'll get a sec. We're nearly through to you, all right?
Yes.
All right, we'll be with you. All right, I got her hand, John. I've got her hand. Where does it hurt, Eva?
Nowhere. I feel nothing.
You can't feel anything at all?
No.
All right. Now, don't worry. There's a lot of people out here working as hard as they can to get you out.
Thank you.
All right, we've got to look at this and move a few more things around. Now, I'll be back.
The man who made that vital first contact with Eva was the fireman Peter Simpson.
Actually managing to make physical contact with her was really good. Then, once we'd discovered how bad her injuries were, particularly the crush injury to her leg, then we became concerned.
6 hours after the explosion, and there's another problem. A large overhang of masonry is teetering directly over where Eva is trapped. It could collapse at any moment. If it does, it will kill her and her rescuers.
Right, what we're doing, we're working as fast as we can, Eva. I've got to move some of the rubble that's around you before we can get you out. And I've got to support the ceiling above you as well, because at the moment it's a little bit unstable, so I want to jack that up before we start moving you, okay?
Yes. Is Karen all right, my sister?
Obviously, I'm not too sure of all the details of what's happening out there, but everything's being done that can be done.
Tell her I'm all right. You tell her?
Yep, okay. Don't worry, Eva, we're doing everything we can for you.
She certainly was alive, but they weren't sure what her state was. And they asked me to go down to try and make some initial assessment to see whether she'd even survive any further masonry removal.
Eva?
Yes?
I'm a doctor. I'm here to help.
The rubble could have collapsed. The bar over her could have given way, and rather than collapse on her, could have collapsed on myself. But one doesn't really think about their own safety in those situations. The whole adrenaline is turned on, and you address the problem in hand, which was saving the girl in the rubble.
My back is hurting.
Can you feel this?
No.
Can you wiggle your toes?
I can't do anything much. I feel very cold.
I was actually quite concerned because she had suffered a severe injury to the knee of one of her legs, and there wasn't enough room for us to turn her and pull her out by the arms. So the only way that we could remove her from this tight area was to pull her out by the legs.
We're nearly ready to bring you out now. Be patient. Won't be very much longer.
The big decision came in concert with the doctor to actually remove her. Now, only one person could work down the tunnel at any given time. So we were going to have to bring her out feet first. The only way we could bring her out feet first was by dragging her by her legs.
2:15 p.m., 7 hours after the explosion, and Eva is finally freed from the rubble. She still doesn't know that her sister has died.
Okay, lie down. That's it. All right.
I remember the daylight. It was like the best thing I had seen. I came out and I felt, you know, obviously being claustrophobic, it was like to feel the fresh air and, you know, to see the sky, and that it felt like being reborn, really.
The success is down to team effort. Although there was 4 of us who worked on the physical rescue of this mine, at all times there was 50 or 60 other firefighters out there working with us.
Eva spent 7 months in hospital and underwent over 40 operations. She'll never forget every moment of those 7 hours she was trapped.
There was total silence. I didn't hear a sound after that initial sort of explosion, that noise I heard. And there was nothing much really I could do except waiting to be rescued. But once you hear voices and you think, you know, that I hope that it will turn out all right, because you feel close to safety, but you could be such a long way away, really. I tried to move my left hand, and I sort of felt something like a smooth surface, and I tried to knock on it, just, you know, to sort of be heard. But I wasn't actually at that point. I was just more uncomfortable than anything. I also remember hearing somebody saying, "Oh, we might as well take her leg off because she won't be able to use it anymore," and that scared me a lot, because I thought, you know, if they amputate it without me having any sort of say, I mean, I just thought, I hope they give me the choice. I thought over my life, I thought if I have to die now, then I don't regret dying, because I had a good life, but I thought it would be nice to be found. You know, that's really what I thought.
It's a situation that one doesn't run across every single day. And Eva was a very important person, in as much as I admired her for her bravery. I haven't seen her much since, but I was delighted to be invited to her wedding subsequent to that. And I'm glad to say she still has both her legs.
My relationship with Dr. Barry Powell, even though I don't see him anymore, you know, I mean, my sort of belief in people really has been restored in a way because of people like him and my husband, and, you know, the fire, you know, the ambulancemen, these people, I can't say enough about them.
Still to come on 999, the runaway speedboat that terrorised a West Country resort. And how you could help save a life yourself. There's always an element of danger about jumping out of an airplane with a parachute. That's what gives it its thrill, its excitement. That's what makes people do it. But you wouldn't expect much danger if you jumped with 2 highly trained instructors. Our next report is about a freak accident and what seemed to us to be a miraculous escape. It happened 12,000 feet up to 3 parachutists as they fell to earth at 120 miles an hour. It began as a birthday treat for a first-time skydiver. He and those 2 instructors have helped us recreate exactly what happened, using the video that one of them was actually shooting as they fell.
My mother was very concerned, and my brothers were taking the mickey out of me, to say the least.
Okay. Because we're going to be last time.
Well, I was persuaded by a friend of mine, and I did it for my birthday to treat myself.
I've been parachuting for a living now for 22 years, and I've never seen as much as a serious injury. So it really is a very, very safe sport. This was an absolute chance in a million.
It's quite a frightening experience insofar as they don't know anything about it when they get here. So we show them as much as possible before we actually do the jump. What we're going to do, we're going up to 12,000 feet in the Skyvan.
Yeah.
We're going to jump out, free fall down to 6,000 feet, open the main parachute, and right down to the ground. A few things that I need you to know, but I'll tell you as we go along. Okay. You don't have to do much. So we explain to them what the canopy's like, how soft it is, how gentle it is, and how safe it is, how Are they always open? I've never had one not open. And I've done over 1,000 jumps. And I've never had a canopy that's not open properly. Now, when we're landing, we need to flare the canopy. So we put the hands as high as they'll go. The brief is the same every time for all students that have got to do a tandem jump. We show them all the equipment, exactly how we've got to get in and out of the aeroplane. It helps to give them more confidence. I'm just going to show you this bit of tape before we go out to the aircraft so he knows exactly what to expect.
Yeah.
Stood at the back of the van here. I'll get into position. You can hear me okay here, so I can shout for you. Then we dive out.
Right.
Once we're out, I'm going to deploy the drogue.
Yeah.
That gets us nice and stable. I'll tap you on the shoulders, bring your arms out into the stable spread position like I showed you.
Yeah.
See how nice and stable it is here?
Yeah.
Okay.
The idea of the tandem jumps to give the novice all the sensation of skydiving and none of the worry. The instructor strapped to his back has control and their parachute.
6,000 feet, thereabouts. I'll wave to cameraman, tell him we've got to dump out, and I'll let it go.
Right.
Once that happens, then just relax,
Right.
OK? Just stay nice and still. I'll sort it all out, make sure it's open properly,
Right.
and then we'll just glide down to earth, OK?
Great.
Right, let's go and do
Let's
it.
go.
The weather conditions were perfect that day as they set off for the jump zone, 12,000 feet over the Cambridgeshire countryside.
OK, Richard, look over here. The briefing, everything was normal, and Richard was quite a calm and good student, really. And he seemed quite calm, everything went OK. We're up to, we're going to stay that way.
I felt pretty calm. I was actually surprised how calm I felt. I think it was more a sense of apprehension rather than anxiety.
The second instructor, Ronnie O'Brien, was there to film the first jump with his helmet camera as a souvenir. The next pictures you'll see are those that Ronnie shot that day.
We went very steep and actually onto his back, so we were looking back up at the aeroplane. Flicked over. Once we'd done that and we were face to earth, I then went to deploy the drogue.
Two bodies strapped together fall faster than one, so tandem jumpers use a small drogue to slow them down to the speed of a solo jump. This time, things went badly wrong. The strap from the drogue hit Mike in the face.
So I reached over to push it away from my face, and we actually turned round, and it literally went round my neck. And it had me stuck there, hung there. And I was just looking straight up at the base of the pilot chute.
As the drogue went out, I could see that something was wrong. I couldn't tell quite what at the time. So I moved back away from over the top of the tandem in case Mike deployed his reserve parachute. When he didn't, I dived down in front of them to see what was going on. And normally you're doing around 120 miles an hour in free fall. So by diving towards them, you accelerate 30 or 40 miles an hour till you catch up with them. You then reduce your speed again back to 120 miles an hour. And then I could see that the bridle from the drogue parachute was wrapped around Mike's neck.
And so I thought, I can cut it. I've got a knife, I can cut it. That'll give us a clean deployment for the reserve. So I reached for my knife to cut it, but I never really got hold of it. I just started fading away and fell asleep practically.
Ronnie, the cameraman, knew the two men's only chance was for him somehow to reach them and deploy their parachute before releasing his own. All this while falling at 120 miles an hour. A few seconds left, and all the time Richard, the novice, was unaware of the danger he was in.
So I thought they were just playing a dreadful practical joke on me. I thought I'd been far too calm and they were trying to show me what real fear really was. In fact, my reaction was not so much fear as anger because I thought this was really an unfair thing to do to me.
I didn't realise at any time that he'd gone unconscious. So I started pointing to my reserve handle to suggest that he might like to pull his reserve. When he didn't, I decided to have a go myself. They were spinning quite quickly, and I had to get in through the rotation. Eventually managed to grab hold of them, unfortunately on the wrong side initially, and had to turn myself round the tandem pair until I could get access to the reserve handle on this side, which I was then able to pull, and the reserve parachute deployed. I felt quite elated when I realised that that their reserve was open and that they were going to be okay. Yes, I was pretty pleased at that point.
The next thing I knew was like waking up after quite a long sleep, like waking up in the morning and being under a parachute, which like was totally illogical. You can't be under a parachute when you just got out of bed, sort of thing, you know. And I couldn't work out how we got there for a second or two. That frightened me a bit, and I had to really look at the parachute, look at the ground, and look at the sky to convince myself that we were still here, that we were still alive.
It wasn't until after we'd landed that I'd actually been released from the harness and got up and turned round and saw that the damage that had been done to Mike. He had a rope burn right across his neck, and his face was bleeding from a collision that happened in the air.
Since the incident, Mike's not changed at all. He still refuses to buy the drink. I have to get my hand in my pocket when we go in the pub.
I know how lucky we were to survive that, and that got to me a little bit. It's made me think more about, I don't know, I'm more content with things, you know, like nothing's really that bad, is it, anymore? So I find that I'm more content with life, really, I suppose.
We want to hear more about people like the parachute instructor Ronnie O'Brien, people who you think deserve recognition. Not just trained professional lifesavers, but ordinary people who've done something special to help others who are in trouble.
At a reservoir in Essex, 16-year-old Christian Berry was fishing with friends when a little girl fell into the water. There was thick mud on the reservoir bed, but Christian, who suffers from asthma and a hole in the heart, finally found the girl totally submerged and unconscious. He managed to reach Bryony Clark, got her to safety, and brought her round. In this quiet country lane near Croydon, a man collapsed in the road and stopped breathing. Moments later, a passing motorist, Jane Crisp, went to his aid. She started giving him the kiss of life, but it took a full 16 minutes to get him breathing again. And in the Welsh Hills, RSPCA men refused to give up when they tried to rescue 3 dogs trapped in a cave. They spent 13 days burrowing through tunnels, some only wide enough for a man at a time, and finally found 1 dog alive, a terrier named Sam. If you know of someone whose story we can tell, call us anytime on 0272 742200. That's 0272 742200.
Each week on 999, our video reporter, Fiona Foster, will be on the road with Britain's lifesavers for an insider's view of their world, what they do, what makes them tick, their triumphs and their tragedies. This is what she uses, just this little camcorder. So she's a highly mobile, one-woman television team who can get into places the bigger crews can't go. And when you see how many people it normally takes just to film me talking to you, then you'll understand how a woman who's reporter, camera operator and sound recordist all in one has a better chance of keeping up when the alarm bells start to ring.
If you're coming to the beach this summer and you find some nice shells, then by all means take them home. But do make sure you know exactly what type of shell you're dealing with.
During the Second World War, 500,000 mines, both British and German, were planted around the coast of Britain. Only 1/3 of them have ever been found. If they turn up at sea or on the shore anywhere between Scarborough and Bournemouth, it's up to the Navy's Portsmouth Clearance Diving Unit to sort them out. Their commanding officer is Lieutenant Ian Morton, known to everyone as the Boss.
We're now just coming to the busiest time of our year when people are out and about on the beaches and they find some unexploded ordnance, be it bomb, mine, even parts of missiles sometimes turn up. and the area is usually sealed off until we get there.
For such a big territory, there's still a lot of waiting. It's all very informal, everyone's got a nickname, and even the boss does the washing up.
Looks like something might be happening already. I don't know what exactly, don't know how serious. Something in Dorset, I think.
Yeah. What's the SP on these mortars? I'd like to put Fiona in the Land Rover if we can. So you're just getting ready to go, eh? Right. There's 3 mortars in a farmer's field, and Plymouth are the nearest unit to this, or normally would be, but they're unable to go because of lack of people. So we've been asked to attend.
And is it urgent?
And it is an urgent, it's a reasonably urgent job. The Army, the Operations Centre have put a high priority on it, so we've got to get down there as quickly as possible. So finish your sandwich and we're off.
Because this is rated a C2 emergency, it means that we're authorised to use the siren and the blue light in order to help us get through any heavy traffic we come across. Well, 2 hours bumpy driving later, and we're in deepest Dorset. No sign of the farmer yet, but it looks like the local police are here already.
Sit tight here, just start getting things ready. I'll get back to you in a minute.
Can I come with you, Tony?
The man in charge is Chief Petty Officer Petrie, or Tiny to the lads.
What you've got there is basically a 2-inch mortar. There's no clear identification markings, so you have to assume the worst possible hazard. So we'll assume it's has the potential to be an HE, or a high explosive mortar bomblet. So the intentions will be to go and have a look at the other ones that they've got for us, and then come back, get the equipment and dispose of them in their present situation.
In fact, 3 mortars were found.
All we're going to do is put a quantity of our explosive onto it, connect the detonator into that, and then do a controlled explosion on that. Can I get you to go back to the firing point if you wouldn't mind?
And me too?
You're fine. Obviously the main consideration here again is safety, and that's the reason I've asked you my opposite number to go back to the firing point. So we basically try and achieve a one-man, one-risk evolution at this point. Be cautious. Right, we can go back to the firing point. We'll deal with the first one.
Okay. One thing's for sure, he's certainly a lot calmer about it than I've been.
Priming! Stand by! Firing! Firing!
Stephen, do you often feel in danger?
In danger? No, not at all. Not at all.
But sometimes you must be, so...
So I think it's like everything. You just get used to it, even though there is an element of danger there. You don't honestly expect that anything is going to happen to you. I think if you did, you wouldn't do it in the first place.
We've just had a call from Yarmouth Coast Guard advising us that the Coast Guard at Hunstanton in Norfolk has reported about 4 times possible World War II shells. He's now put that in the system, and we'll without doubt get tasked on that one.
At low tide next morning, we met Norfolk Coast Guard Colin Tomlinson.
Well, we had a report from a public, one of the bait diggers, that they'd seen something that looked like a shell on the beach and told me where it was, and I came down and seen 5, which I believed to be shells, because this area is well known for, during the war, as being a bombing range, shelling range, and there's been thousands found over the last few years, and the Navy's been up on constant occasions to look at them and blow them up.
I'll leave you with this one, Smudge. I'll bring the others over to you in a minute. You start preparing that.
Strange smell, isn't it?
Very nice, though. For some reason, some people tend to like it, though.
Have to be careful. You sort of have to do it over bags like that. Otherwise you end up with plastic explosive everywhere.
The suspect shells were covered in modern plastic explosive. This stuff is 10 times more potent than gunpowder. On its own, it's safe in the right hands, but wired to a detonator, it's potentially lethal.
Detonator connected up.
Stood. Okay, Smudge.
Fitting detonator.
Make sure you keep clear of the firing cable.
Go ahead. This is Hunstone and Sierra on the beach. We're now going to detonate, so you might get some 999 calls in from large explosion on the beach. Over.
Okay, back to the vehicle, fella, as soon as you're happy.
One or all of these shells could be live, so we retired to a safe distance.
Prime and fire when ready.
Circuit primed. Firing now.
So time now for a quick tea break before they head back. That's this one beach cleared for today. The tides could bring up more stuff tomorrow. By then, they'll be back at base waiting for the call to cover the 700 miles of coastline this small band of men have to protect all year round.
This is Salcombe in South Devon. For most of the year, it's a peaceful seaside town. But in the summer, they call it Gerrard's Cross-on-Sea, because it attracts swarms of well-heeled holiday makers from around London. It's the water sports they come for, of course. You don't need a licence, you don't need any experience to drive a boat. Anybody can get out on the water. Our next report shows how serious accidents can happen even in a peaceful and picturesque place like this. The story begins at Starhole Bay, just a mile down the coast. Isabel Jackson is played by an actress, but Jamie Fisher takes part as himself.
Slow down, speed up. OK, hang on.
Well, I didn't really know her at all. I'd met her that day, and she was quite excited about being out on the water, and she wanted to learn how to ski.
Faster?
Oh, man, faster.
Slower?
Yeah.
OK. Right.
It was using my boat. It's just a dory with a small 40 horsepower on the back. But the bay that we all use, it's a lovely big bay with a small cove in the corner. And we just ski around and everyone on the rocks watching.
Go!
Further up the bay, the Dewdney brothers were out in their speedboat.
We just got a new engine onto the back of the boat. We were just sort of shooting around the bay, not looking for anything in particular, not doing anything in particular, just wasting fuel. I didn't know Jamie at all, really. Well, I knew him slightly, but I only knew him through my brother. Isabel, I'd never even heard of.
Isabel and Jamie had been skiing for half an hour when something happened that no one could have anticipated.
I was slaloming from side to side, and when I was out to the right-hand side, she was going towards the little cove where the beach was, and turned very early around the rocks, before I expected it. I just remember seeing her just rolling out the back of the boat and just watching the boat cavitating, just half out the water, going at horrendous speed, with no one in it.
Jamie managed to swim away from the path of the boat and was picked up, but Isabel was still in the danger zone. Isabel managed to duck underneath the boat, but it was locked into a tight circle, and it started to come round again.
to our right, we noticed somebody in the water. Then we saw the dory come round, going towards the body in the water. And then when it didn't stop, we realised there was something wrong. As I swam towards her, some very morbid thoughts. Well, my only morbid thought was that whether she had her head left or not, because the damage that prop could do was quite horrendous. I grabbed hold of her shoulder, pulled her upright. She was unconscious at this time. Whilst I was dragging her back to our boat, the other boat came around again.
The boat missed Guy's head by inches.
When I got back to our boat, I passed her arms to Ollie, my brother, who grabbed hold of her wrists and just pulled up as hard as he could.
That's it. Okay. Oh my God! She's hurt badly, Guy.
We knew we had to get back to a populated bit of land as soon as possible. And the nearest place was South Sands Beach.
Come on! She's not breathing! Still no breath! Just bear with us. We'll get you back as quickly as we can. I've got a pulse! Oh, get over here! Help us out of here! Careful! Don't get an ambulance! See if we can get a first aid or something! Get to the hotel!
Because the beach was a bit damp, we decided that we ought to get her head off the ground because of the large cut in her head. She was just about breathing, not very well, and the heartbeat was okay. She kept on clenching her teeth, so my brother put his hand in her mouth, put his thumb in there and nearly bit it off, but...
Hold on still. Okay, hold her legs. Everything's gonna be okay. The ambulance men are coming.
Out in the bay, the runaway boat was causing chaos. They tried to get on board, but it was just going too fast.
Okay, let's move out the way, please. Let me get a look. Okay, keep still. Somebody tell me her name.
Isabel.
Isabel?
Yeah, she got hit on the head out.
On a rock, on a boat?
A boat.
All right, okay. Just keep still. Just... Is anywhere else? Okay. Just keep this arm still. You're going to be fine.
Out at sea, they were trying to throw a rope into the path of the runaway boat. The idea was to snag the propeller and stop it.
Isabel, everything's fine. Just keep these...
I made a hasty examination of her and realised that she was breathing well, that she got a good pulse, that, in fact, she was not in immediate danger of anything awful, but I thought that she might fit because she was showing some signs of cerebral irritation, grinding her teeth and appearing very agitated and rather twitchy.
So just watch your head now. Watch your head. Keep still. Everything's fine.
I was optimistic that we could get her to hospital.
Fine, just keep breathing.
I was worried about whether she would be weak down the left side, whether she'd have some memory loss, whether she might perhaps have a tendency to epilepsy.
Keep breathing. Don't move. Don't move. You've got a knock on the head here.
Initially, I wasn't feeling at all upset, but
Just get you in a second.
as my hands were taken away from the situation and the doctor took over,
Everything's fine.
I found out that she had a broken
we
arm,
got you there.
which we didn't know about.
Right, no problem.
Then it really did start getting to me. It's strange because I felt sad and I felt slightly guilty almost, even though I didn't know who it was. Somebody came up to me and said, "Don't worry, we're all, I'm trained in this sort of situation. I know how to handle it," seeing me being fairly upset. I was pretty angry with him. I didn't say anything. I mean, he didn't realise that it was me who had done all the saving, so he didn't know what I'd gone through. And he just thinks he can just swan up, and it just annoyed me intensely.
I thought it was the most courageous rescue. I think within the few minutes after the accident that the Dudney brothers became involved, her life was saved without a doubt.
Keep calm, okay, and we're moving. Okay, I'm just going to get you up here. 1, 2, 3.
I think if they'd stood in the boat waiting for help, as many of us would in that very frightening situation, Isabel would have been lost forever. In those few moments, they pulled her out of the sea and resuscitated her and gave back to her the rest of her life, which she would otherwise most certainly have lost, I'm sure.
Empty. I felt, after the ambulance had come, I felt sort of empty and as if that was it and you can go back to your life perfectly normally now and just don't worry about it.
Isabel spent 3 days on a life support system and a whole year coming to terms with her injuries. They've left her with epilepsy.
It's strange because I don't remember what actually happened, but when I woke up I knew something had happened. I sort of knew in my head that something was not so much wrong, but something had happened that had changed things. Well, when I came round, I mean, there wasn't really any pain at all. I don't know if I was on some sort of painkillers or something, but the funny thing is I've never really experienced any sort of pain from this accident other than when it went on. Unfortunately, I don't remember that.
Oh my God!
I was watching Ghost, which most people have seen, and there's a bit in it, something rang in my head, and I had a flashback of being on the beach at Southsea. I don't know, I just got a feeling of being really badly injured and really helpless and just sort of moaning and just sort of there being other people around me. I couldn't see anything in my head, but I just got this really awful feeling, just the emotional feeling of being totally helpless and really badly injured. There's a ridge that runs down where the propeller hit, but that's an actual dent in my skull. As for the rest of it, there's nothing, I don't think. All the scars gathered up my hair. Fortunately, nothing shows. I'm still fighting it. It's not... I'll never get back to normal either. It's mainly the epilepsy that's been the change because the scar is still settling down. Marcus is also epileptic. I met him on the first day of term, and up until that point, which was an entire year, I hadn't met anybody who was epileptic. And it was a real relief to be able to talk to somebody who was, and we just got talking, and I've been with him ever since, and that's over 18 months, 19 months, I think. When you come round, you've got two options open to you. You can lie back and take the sympathy and get well slowly if your body lets you. Or you can try and fight back. You can get on with it. You can just say, well, this isn't going to stop me. I'm all right, and I know I'm right, and I'm going to get on with it. So that's what I did.
One man who believes that the sort of accident that happened to Isabel really shouldn't ever happen again is Salcomb's harbour master, Peter Hodges, who's also secretary of the local RNLI.
Well, at the moment in this country, we have a situation where anybody at all, including, if you like, to take the extreme, a 4-year-old child, can legally step into, if you like, a Ferrari of the water, a high-powered engine on the back, and drive it. There's nothing to stop him, which is not common with the rest of Europe and, if you like, the developed world. There's a very good example there. I don't know how old he is, but I think under 10. And the boat's capable of 45 miles an hour. In the case of Isabel's accident, there were several other things. For instance, there is a kill switch fitted to the engine. And given a little bit of education and instruction, which I believe she probably didn't have, but even if we're not talking about her specific case, it's the general case. By using the kill switch, when you fall out of a boat, the engine stops.
What would you like to see change to make this sort of activity a lot safer?
Well, within the harbour, we can make our own bylaws, and we're doing that, and we're limiting 16-year-olds to 10 horsepower engines. Outside the harbour, it's a different story, and really the only way to address the problem, in my view, is on a national basis.
So what do you want done?
We need a level of competence before somebody is allowed to drive a boat, which in effect means a form of licence similar to that needed for a car.
So a driving test?
A driving test. And then, to be absolutely honest, when somebody misbehaves themselves, just as on the roads, you could take their licence away, which might be a great help to a lot of people trying to manage the safety around the coasts.
As we saw, Isabel was very lucky that Guy and Oliver Dewdney did at least some of the right things that helped save her life. It's in those crucial 2 or 3 minutes after an accident that lives are saved or lost. If it had been you instead of them, would you have been able to help?
First aid experts say it's always better to have a little knowledge and do something rather than do nothing and wait for help to arrive. It can be very easy to help save a life. There are 4 simple things that you would learn how to do on any first aid course. 1. Check for breathing. 2. Stop any bleeding. Apply pressure directly with a pad or even with your fingers. 3. Learn the simple ABC of resuscitation: airway, breathing, and circulation. How to open the airway. How to do mouth-to-mouth breathing. And how to restart the circulation. And 4, learn how and when to use the recovery position. Remember, most accidents happen in the home or on journeys, so the chances are that the person you may have to help will be someone in your family or someone you know. Could you help them?
Obviously, that's not intended to be any comprehensive practical guide to life-saving, but if you do want to find out more about first aid, then the St John Ambulance Association has produced a free fact sheet. If you want a copy, send a stamped addressed envelope to St John Ambulance, 1 Grosvenor Crescent, London, SW1X7EF. And you can find that address, together with other 999 life-saving information, on CFAX, page 622.
Next week on 999, a grim car crash that should have killed the driver outright, but left him on the edge of death with only the speed and skill of his rescuers to save him. And the boy who fell into a gorilla pit, a parent's nightmare come true. The number again for your rescue stories and local heroes, 0272 74 2200. Or write to 999, BBC Bristol, BS8 2LR.